and Councillor John Evan-Jones.
Diolch yn fawr. And the next item, item number 2, is declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest from anyone, please? I can't see any hands being raised. So we'll go on to item number 3, which is notice of urgent matters. I haven't received any notice of urgent matters, so that doesn't apply. So we'll go on to item number 4, which is the minutes of the last Fire Authority meeting held on the 19th of January. So we'll deal with those in terms of accuracy. So page number 1, page number 2, page number 3, page number 4, page number 5, page number 6, and page number 7. I can't see any hands being raised, so can I ask for somebody to propose and second the minutes, please? Thank you, Mark Young. Thank you, Gareth Sandilands. Will you all show that you agree? Diolch yn fawr. So that has been passed. David, I can see that you've got a virtual hand raised. Did you want to say something in relation to the minutes? Diolch yn fawr.
No, I was too slow when you had declaration of interest, Chair.
Diolch yn fawr.
On the accepted item.
Yeah, okay. And then just one item just to report back on, and paragraph 4.3, we did refer to the proposed legislation in relation to the reform of governance arrangements within fire and rescue authorities across Wales, and we asked the question, would the legislation actually been passed before the Senedd elections? Well, it has been passed. It was passed at the end of March, so that legislation now did. So we'll move on now to the next item on the agenda, which is the Chair's report. So you will have received the quarterly report, which gives details of the activities and meetings that myself and the Deputy Chair have attended over the last quarter. Are there any questions or any comments from any members, please? So can you hear me? I'm having problems with the connection. Are you able to hear me? Yep, great, okay.
Yes, sir.
Great. So just to highlight as well that this Wednesday, a very important event, which is the 30th year celebration event of the existence of the North Wales Fire and Rescue Service, which is taking place at Ebrill Fire Station from 12 o'clock till 2 o'clock. All members are warmly invited to attend this important event, and there is a buffet. Not that the buffet would entice you. I know that you'd want to come along in any case. But if you are coming along, it would be helpful if you could let Lisa know that you will be attending. So that's this coming Wednesday at 12 o'clock at Ebrill Fire Station. So we go on to item number 6, which is the Cultural Champions Update Report, which is for assurance. And I think that it's the Chief that's presenting this. Thank you, Chief.
Yeah, diolch i'r Eiriad. Yes, I'm pleased to present this report. We present regularly to you, the Fire Authority, so that you can understand the progress that we are making on our cultural journey. And I'm pleased to say that we have Ellen Hughes, the cultural champion, in attendance with us. So if there is any detailed knowledge, I'm sure Ellen will be able to provide that information. I think we recognise the value that having the cultural champions, both Ellen and Tom Weston in post, they have been able to move on the work on much more rapidly by concentrating on it. And also because they come from within the organisation, they're often able to give us the ground truth about how it feels out there. And because of that, I've decided to extend their secondment until September. At that point, we will then maybe offer those positions out to other people, because they are also a very useful development opportunity. If the executive summary highlights some of the work that they've been doing, and they've been revising the original cultural improvement plan. Now that we are some 12 months down the road, we recognise that some of the aspirations we had actually need to be done in a different way. They also are very much on top of people, making sure that we've got those, that we're making progress. And that is reported back to the Cultural Improvement Board, which the chair and the ED&I champion sits on, as do a member of Welsh Government. They've also started to undertake their own programme of station visits. And again, they're feeding back themes. And it's pleasing to see that the themes that people are most concerned about, people that makes a difference to the everyday, is things like promotion boards, recruitment, and training. And, that's the areas that we have been concentrating very much on. And you will recall, members, that a earlier paper concentrated on how we have been developing our promotion processes. They are also very much leading on an all Wales basis with other emergency services partners, where each of these agencies are all in the same place. We're all trying to move our culture forward, and it's good to see them coming together and learning from each other. I think I'm on record of saying that culture is a marathon, not a sprint. And I think it is very much one of those things that you feel it's a bit like a relationship. You almost make 2 steps forward and 1 step back. But I believe that the commitment that is shown here in North Wales, the persistence that people have, and that goodwill will ensure that we get the kind of culture that we all want to see in this organisation. So I'm happy to take any questions or comments that anybody might have. Thank you. Diolch.
Thank you, Chief. And just to confirm, I've had positive feedback from Welsh Government officials and the FBU in relation to the progress that's been made. Councillor Gareth Sandlands, I think you had your hand up first, and then Councillor Mark Young. Diolch.
Diolch, Cadeirydd. How are we involving this and embedding this long term, and what actions are we doing in the future to embed this long term and our teaching practice into everybody within the service?
I think one of the key things that Tom and Helen have developed are the key performance indicators. Because although we do have the Fire Family Survey every 2 years, and that shows our progress, we also need other indicators that we can measure. And it's very difficult to measure something as intangible as culture. But we have consulted on those indicators, and we'll be formally adopting them at the next service leadership team. So I can say the systems are in place, the commitment is there. We just need to continue on this journey. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Mark?
Okay, Jochen, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Chief. So really positive early engagement and station visits are underway, but you've just mentioned there, and it's in the report, the importance of the key performance indicators, but I do note that's in draft form. So could you just give us some update? When will that be completed, the draft form, and when will that be reported back to members? Because you're quite right, it's very important that. Thank you, Chief.
Yeah, thank you. Good to have the opportunity to confirm that we have been consulting on these indicators. And of course, we're working with our rep bodies to make sure that they are on board with them as well. They need to be meaningful for all of us, and they will come back to the Cultural Improvement Board at its next meeting next month, where they will be confirmed. We can then report on them as part of our performance reports that come to the Fire Authority in the future.
Okay, thanks for that, Giacomo. Thank you.
I can't see any other hands being raised, so the report is before us for noting. Can I have somebody propose that we note the contents of the report? Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Mark. Will you show that you agree? Diolch yn fawr. So we move on to the next item on the agenda, which is item number 7, which is the emergency cover review update. And I think it's ACFO Anthony Jones that's presenting this. Bore and
Awdurdod, diolch yn fawr. Yes, thank you. So the purpose of this report is to provide members with an update of the work of the emergency cover review into response to the recommendations from the authority for officers to continue to devise and test alternative solutions with our representative bodies within the agreed budget to address that emergency cover challenge that we have in rural areas. Since its start in 2025, the Emergency Cover Group has developed a collective agreement that demonstrates self-resilience across the 8 whole-time and day crewing stations. And this collective agreement allowed the integration of other posts into a pilot scheme to create a more efficient and effective emergency cover model across North Wales. The collective agreement pilot commenced in September 2025, and that pilot included aligning start and finish times on our existing stations across Rhyl, Wrexham, Deeside with our day crewing stations, and the extension of the day shift at those 3 stations to 10 hours. And we've regularly shared updates on this joint working through our joint consultation negotiation committee meetings. The collective agreement pilot has been supported by a joint working group with representative bodies, staff and officers. And this group has been successful in improving policies and working practices, including a new whole-time rostering policy following consultation in October 2025. A migration programme has allowed on-call staff to transition into whole-time roles to staff our nuclear stations at Dolgellau and Porthmadog, and supported by a fully crewed whole-time rural card rate to improve resilience. Since the pilot had initially began, welfare-focused station improvements have commenced, enhanced on-duty training arrangements, and we've strengthened leave and shift coverage, and with this guidance on hub time for all staff. Early performance data shows an increase in availability and notable improvements in rural cover in locations. This programme is monitored through a jointly agreed social partnership review process, and the first formal meeting is due between the Chief Fire Officer, representative bodies and officers in the next couple of weeks. The first quarter's data do show some encouraging signs of improvement. For example, improved appliance availability. The pilot has led to a noticeable increase in daytime appliance availability at both of the stations where we have nucleus crews, with Porthmadog raising from 4% to 30%, and Dolgellau raising from 66% to 94%. And that's in comparison the 6 months leading October 2025 to March 2026 with the same period the previous year. We've seen an increase in community safety activity. Safe and well checks in Dolgellau that Paul referenced earlier has significantly increased from 26 to 149 between January and March 21, comparing 25 to 26. And respectively, Porthmadog has also seen an increase in performance. In relation to reduction of overtime, through the 6-month period from October 25 to October 26, we've seen a reduction in overtime of nearly £20,000 when compared to the same period the previous year. Whilst initially this may not seem significant, on diving into the data with a bit more detail, we've seen that overtime for whole-time crew deficiencies, so where we've had to use overtime to cover whole-time crew shortages, we've seen an over £40,000 reduction. We have seen an increase on training on rota days, but that we almost expected that, because with whilst the full pilot commenced on the 1st of January, Justin's team had already established a training plan for the first 3 months of this year, which included training on rota days. From the beginning of April onwards, the drive is for all training where possible to be delivered on duty, so we should see a reduction in that overtime for training on rota days. And also, we've seen a reduction in the overtime for retained personnel providing cover, and that is when referencing those two same periods, we're looking at somewhere in the region of a £60,000 reduction. So the data is still very fresh and new. We are still driving into that data, but we are seeing a tangible reduction in the amount of overtime used to maintain cover. In relation to staff concerns and support, some staff have reported challenges with the new start time, and our teams have been working with them to support them through that change. So I think what I want to say is the first quarter's review is certainly showing positive signs of improvement in rural fire cover, community safety activity, and the reduction in overtime. Whilst not obviously apparent in some of the data, those working and monitoring the daily availability planning have stated the starting position each day is better. We are certainly using less movements of staff and appliances, and the overtime has been required less. Over the review period, we've seen numerous days when our 18 pump daytime response has been achieved with no overtime and within existing teams. So this is evidence that we are providing, in collaboration with staff and our representative bodies, a more effective and efficient response to the communities of North Wales. So members are asked, the recommendations within the paper are, members are asked to note that officers have continued to work with representative bodies in social partnership to develop a way forward with the emergency cover review. Note that progress has been made in the launch of the full pilot scheme of the collective agreement on the 1st of January 2026, and appreciate the efforts of all parties to regularly monitor and review the pilot to ensure it remains fit for purpose. Diolch yn fawr iawn. I'm very happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Anton. A very positive report, and it was really helpful to have that data in relation to the actual increase in availability figures and also the reduction in overtime, which isn't actually in the report. So that was helpful to have that included. So Councillor Mark Young and then Councillor Rhonda Roberts. Diolch.
Okay, diolch yn fawr. Yeah, thank you. Good report. All seems positive, and it's good we seem to be getting the coverage in the targeted areas. And you've mentioned the reduction in overtime, and you've stated you think it's going to increase. We all know the challenges with that. So do we think the overtime reduction is sustainable in the long term and not just the short term, please?
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, and yes, as best as I can give you that assurance, yes, we are working within existing budgets and establishment. That was the direction from the Fire Authority. So we are very conscious of that. We are, we've now seen the closure of the first 3 months of the full pilot. When commencing this pilot, we knew we would need 12 months, 24 months to really embed the pilot improvement and changes. As I mentioned in my verbal presentation, we have seen some significant reductions in the overtime used to maintain appliance availability, but we've also seen some increase in training. So, yeah, I would like to give you assurance that the trajectory is positive, and I would hope over the next few quarters we'll see that sustained improvement.
Okay, thanks for that. And to get that sort of savings on a new project with the positive results is a good piece of work. So, diolch yn fawr, well done, everyone. Cheers.
Next, Councillor Rhonda Roberts. Rhonda, diolch.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair. Apologies for attending late. Technical issues. Just a couple of queries, really. Yeah, it was an excellent report and a positive increase in the numbers. But as we're coming into sort of the season for the hill fires and the wildfires, will those officer movements be affected by any extra call-outs in sort of the sort of targeted areas where we see in the mountain fires and such? And just secondly, in relation to the increase in numbers, Have you got any turnout figures, please, in those areas?
Thank you. So in relation to your first question, what obviously we start each day with our availability planning to maintain our 18 pump daytime availability. We've achieved that on 100% of occasions for as long as we've been reporting. So having that spread of fire cover therefore allows us to respond to those incidents where they are. And as you'll totally appreciate, we have some prediction of where those wildfire incidents may be, but the cover we provide is for the whole of North Wales. The pilot itself is giving us a better starting position, most definitely. We now have whole-time staff in those rural areas where previously we didn't have whole-time staff. And as our understanding and our interpretation of the data is, we now appreciate we are in a stronger position than we possibly initially thought in relation to appliance availability across North Wales. So, but with any incident, it has to be dynamic. So if the incident is in the west, we'll move resources to manage that. If it's in the east, vice versa. So we're in a better, certainly the emergency cover reviews put us in a better starting position to respond to those incidents. Just to give members assurance, we have always maintained that 18 pump availability, but with more significant costs over the previous years. So the pilot is designed to improve that position for us. In relation to turnouts for Dolgellau and Porthmadog, I don't have that to hand, but certainly it's a really good and valid point. So I will ask the team to look at that and see how the turnouts for those two stations has changed. I myself visited Dolgellau on one of the just shortly after the nucleus crewing had been implemented, and I turned up and they were out, which is positive. You know, that's exactly what we want them to be. That's what they want to be for. And what I am also seeing is a real cohesive working with the on-call at those two stations. You're seeing that the whole vision for this project was that the nucleus whole-time staff would be in attendance, support the on-call staff with making their fire engine available, but support them with their training, their response, their community safety activities, and we are seeing that most definitely.
Would it be possible to share those numbers when you receive them, please?
Yes, happily, yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Rhonda. Cynghorydd Gwynfor Owen, diolch.
Ie, diolch yn fawr, Mr Cadeirydd, a diolch yn fawr am yr adroddiad. O gofio, mae prif bwrpas gwaith yma oedd i wella gwasanaeth yng nghefn gwlad. Ydych chi'n hapus bod y gwelliant yno yn dod yn nes at y targeda oeddech chi di osod ac oedden ni'n trafod rhyw 2 blynedd yn ôl bellach, ac sut mae hynny yn mynd yn ei flaen. Dwi'n gwerthfawrogi'r gwaith yn Porthmadog a Dolgellau, ond yn gyffredinol ar gefn gwlad trwy'r Gogledd, ydy'r gwaith yn cyrraedd y targeda oeddech chi di osod?
Diolch, thank you for the question. So the Fire Authority set our standard, if you like, that we must maintain 18 pump availability model across North Wales. And as I mentioned previously, we've consistently maintained that since it was established. But how we've maintained that has been less resilient and by using significant movements of either resources of appliances or staff and the use of overtime. And that was what was identified as unsustainable for the authority. And the emergency cover review has been tasked with maintaining that 18 pump standard, but making things more efficient and effective and securing that whole time resource in those rural areas. So from the launch of the full pilot from the beginning of January this year, we are seeing that most definitely. That was the target we set ourselves, was to maintain that model, reduce it over time, operate within existing budgets, use our whole time staff more efficient and effectively, and to have the ability to put whole time firefighters in those rural areas, giving us that more guaranteed fire cover, giving that social value to those areas, whole-time jobs in areas across North Wales where there weren't previously firefighter jobs, with the added benefit of migrating on-call staff from those local areas, from across those more rural areas into whole-time positions. So from that point of view, we're certainly on that journey. We are seeing the positivities coming out of it, and we are certainly seeing the rural fire cover more resilient and more robust.
Thank you. So I've got two other members with hands raised. First, Councillor Gareth Sandilands, and then Councillor Jeff Evans. Diolch.
Yes, thank you. It appears that we've been on this journey quite some time with the authority, and I want to make sure that this continues not just on this particular project, but throughout and ongoing. We've learnt from this cover. We want to see pilots being ended, and this is a continuous professional development. So I'm just going on to the lessons learned. How do we actually recognise the issues that we've learnt so far and make sure that they don't arise again in the future? And I'm particularly thinking about union representation and making sure they are part of the ongoing continuing dialogue and everybody is happy and positive going forward. So I'd like you to know what lessons we've learnt going forward and how are we embedding this future, such as the union practices that we've got. Thank you.
Diolch, Councillor. Thank you for your question. So, as you say, we've been on this journey since early mid 2023, where we took a consultation on the emergency cover review to the communities of North Wales and had an overwhelming response in relation to the direction for that. And you are right, we learned a lot in that year around how working more collaboratively with our representative bodies was certainly a more productive and professional way to work for us all. So early 2024, you will recall that the service embarked on the task and finish group working hand in glove with our representative bodies and staff. I initially created that task and finish group with staff across all areas of our response from North Wales, officers within departments, but at the heart of it with the representative bodies. And I worked very closely with Terry and Rebecca on the 2 years since there, which culminated in the collective agreement. So the collective agreement itself, and during that time, we also were mandated by Welsh Government in relation to social partnership duty and those working together. So we had commenced that work prior to that mandation, but actually that then almost formalised that working together that we were doing informally, if you like. The collective agreement, that collective bargaining piece of work, is, I would argue, a true testament to how strong our working relationships have been with the representative bodies over this period. Certainly, when we were working to get that approved last year, we had to take that to the Fire Brigades Union on a national level, UK-wide, and they were happy to endorse that, recognising the positivity that we were working collectively as opposed to in opposition. And within that collective agreement, there are an agreed number of areas that we jointly created that would form part of these formal reviews that commence with the chief and the representative bodies over the next couple of weeks. So we have that ability there to capture those lessons learnt. We also, not only is this a formal review document that we will prepare together, but also we still have monthly meetings that our head of transformation, Mike Plant, chairs. He chairs those meetings with staff and representative bodies, but more importantly, he moves those meetings across the service area. So he has those meetings at a different station every time. So, and we bring the staff into those meetings so that, if, for example, if it's at Dolgellau, the Dolgellau team are part of that review meeting. So we get to hear it. We get to hear those lessons learned firsthand from the people living and breathing the pilot. So again, it is early days. The pilot, 2026 will be the first year of really embedding the pilot, and I would hope to see 2027 as the year we finalise it, and I would hope it'd be business as usual after that point.
Thank you. I think the Chief wants to come in. Chief.
Thank you. Yes, I think we are benefiting from a maturity in relationships. So it's not just a case of the way officers work with the FBU, it's the way the FBU colleagues are working with us. And I think that is where we're being able to make the most progress, because our relationship is based on mutual respect. And I think that's borne fruit, and we're seeing how well we can work together if we just take a very positive approach. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. And just to sort of echo those positive comments, the Deputy Chair and myself did meet with the Chief and ACFO, Hannah MacArthur, and union representatives in a pre-meet last week to go through the agenda for today's meeting, and they did confirm that, yes, the collective agreement is in place, is working well. Where there are issues, those are dealt with at a local level. So there's definitely positive partnership working taking place and regular dialogue and open communication. Councillor Jeff Evans.
Yes, Awdurdod, good morning to you all. Referring now to the reduction in overtime, which is obviously pleasing and welcoming for the North Wales Fire Service, how is such a reduction in overtime being taken by the firefighters? Is overtime considered a valuable, necessary resource by the firefighters in cover and in their wages? And what is potentially the impact?
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, I mean, and I do appreciate that, because with the fact that staff have been able to apply for overtime or seek overtime, you get used to that spend, don't you? Let's be honest. So those staff do. But equally, what was really important was listening to staff in relation to the priorities of making sure they get their leave and they get their, those areas are still as important. Overtime is one of those areas that is listed in the monthly meetings and is formally reported on, where staff can raise concern. Clearly, for ourselves as an organisation, the reliance on overtime to maintain fire cover is not where we want to be, because as you know, whilst our relationships are very positive, should that change, then staff can therefore choose not to do overtime, which can put us in a difficult position. So from a resilience point of view on ourselves, we don't want to be in a position where we rely on overtime to maintain our operational cover, because that then puts us at risk. But also staff, we shouldn't be building a model of response that relies on staff's willingness to do overtime and therefore do those additional hours. Whilst I do appreciate the question that, financially, if people have been, getting 1 or 2 days overtime a month, for example, each year, then they get used to that cost of living, or that bit of their salary. So it is most definitely an area of focus within our review meetings. I haven't heard concern raised in that regard as yet, but as I said, the first formal review meeting is in the next couple of weeks.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I can't see any other hands being raised. So if we move to the 3 items that were recommended that we approve for noting, can I have somebody propose that we accept those, please? Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Anthony. If you all show that you're in agreement. So we move on to the next item on the agenda, which is item 8, which is the Hub Awen Training Centre project update. And it's over to ACFO Justin Evans for this report. Diolch, Justin.
Diolch, Cadeirydd. I'll just go through the key points from the report. So overall, the project continues to progress through the agreed governance arrangements that we have in place. The project board met most recently on the 1st of April and received assurance on progress, key milestones, the risks and the issues associated with the project. Importantly, the board also considered a small number of compensation events arising from increases in project scope that were the increases that were approved previously by this authority. And those compensation events have been reviewed and approved by the board through the governance process, ensuring that the impact of those are understood and controlled and remain within the tolerances of the project. In terms of the site, members will note that following the completion of the site clearance works, the site has now formally been returned to fire service control. The ecological works have recommenced on the site now that we've got to the springtime, and that includes the continued management of great crested newts on the site, in line with the statutory requirements for those arrangements and the agreed ecology management plan. And that work is being managed alongside the wider programme to minimise any risks or avoid any unnecessary delays. From a programme perspective, the project team is continuing to work towards REBA Stage 2, and this stage is important in providing increased clarity around the design, the development of that design, the costs and the programme itself, and it will help to inform the next phase of work and any future reporting to members. It's not in itself a decision gateway, but rather a point at which we will be better informed as the project continues to develop. Members will also see reference in the report to funding activity. A dedicated funding subgroup continues to explore external funding and investment opportunities, including the engagement with Welsh Government that we've previously mentioned and other stakeholders. It's important to be clear that there remains uncertainty around the timing and availability of any potential Welsh Government funding, particularly in the context of the forthcoming election and the period immediately following it. There may also be some delay post-election whilst funding priorities are confirmed and new ministerial and official arrangements are established. So that uncertainty is being actively factored into our project planning and our risk management, and members will be informed as soon as that position becomes clear. Finally, I want to touch on communications and engagement. Work continues alongside that technical work that I've mentioned and governance strands to ensure that engagement is clear, coordinated and timely. And that's not just limited to political engagement, it also includes preparations for any future planning requirements and consideration of how statutory process and engagement with people will be managed as the project progresses. Draft communications and briefing materials have been prepared. We have our dedicated website to Hub Owen, and only this week I was made aware that we've had some inquiries from that website, and people are taking interest and looking at the information that we've provided there. So this is really just to make sure that we keep people appropriately informed of the project as it progresses. And that concludes my update. Chair, I'm happy to take any questions or.
Thank you, Ad. So Councillor Gareth Sandlands, then Councillor Mark Young. Diolch.
Yeah, thank you very much. I've been privileged as the member representing the authority on these meetings, and I can say that the team are working as hard as they can do. But my question this morning is to ACFO MacArthur and the Chief on this, and it's the funding is the key issue here. Can you provide us with the very latest update, what we have done and what we are going continually as a collective to get this magic 50 million? This is to avoid critical delays in the future. And can you provide me with the timeline where we need to commit the money for funding? Thank you.
So an easy question. I don't know who's going to come in first.
Can I just come in on that? And then if colleagues wanted to add to it. So I guess at this stage, we're not making assumptions. We are managing this project prudently. As I've mentioned in my update, we're working towards REBA Stage 2, which will give us that clarity around the design and the cost of the programme. That will give us that will put us in a better position to understand options and have an informed discussion with members as we move forward. Based upon our current agreed programme and reporting to members, the project is expected to reach REBA Stage 3, that developed design, in late 2026, with an associated Gateway 3 decision expected around September this year. So this aligns with the previously discussed position that we've mentioned when I've given my previous updates. The Gateway 3 and REBA Stage 3 sort of effectively co-align. And that really gives us a point where the project has sort of reached a design maturity, certainly certainty around cost and the risk position is better understood, and that will help us as we wish to move forward. I guess if by that point, by later in the year, if external funding has not materialised and we've not been able to secure that, we would most definitely bring a further report to the authority setting out that position clearly, which would then give options and implications and obviously risks. You'll recall when I brought the business case previously, I talked extensively around the risks associated with not progressing this project. So we will have to be very clear about, we will be very clear on what those options and on what those risks mean. I suppose any decisions around how the project proceeds at that point would be a matter for the authority. I suppose at this time, the focus is on maintaining momentum for us in the project. We are definitely engaging with stakeholders, some of which I probably wouldn't want to go on record here today to name those stakeholders specifically, but we are having conversations, certainly having conversations with government and also with wider partners as well. So I certainly will give commitment that we will bring options to the authority at some point, should we have not been able to secure that funding. Okay.
And I think the Chief wants to come in. Thank you, Chief.
Yes, thank you. I will also bring Helen in to talk about the kind of modelling and options that we are currently reviewing, and also her discussions with Welsh Government. Justin has also been working tirelessly to put together the lobbying package, because we recognise that we need political support. We need your political support, but we also need the new members that will be joining the Senedd to be very up to speed with this project and committed to lobbying for it. So I'll just bring Helen in for this at this moment in time to give you some idea of the work she's been doing with her team.
So just before I bring Helen in, just in terms of the lobbying, so you will have noticed from my report that the Chief, myself, and Justin did meet with Ffrinap Iorwerth face to face earlier this month to explain to him the risks that are facing the service going forward and how important it is that we receive funding for this project. If you believe the opinion polls, and I'm not saying that you have to believe the opinion polls, he could well be the new First Minister. So it was important for us to speak face to face about with him. So that, I think, part of the lobby process. Helen, do you want to come in?
Thank you, Chair. I think pulling that together, we do have a funding group that has been established. It meets regularly, and within that there are a number of work streams. Some of those work streams are working with colleagues in the public sector to make them aware of the training centre and the financial aspects. It's also working with Welsh Government officials, identifying and lobbying politicians as appropriate, given the sensitivities around the Senedd elections. Justin's also alluded to the fact that we've got some commercial partners that we're engaged with, and that is a little bit sensitive, but also other public sector partners as well. So huge amount of work that is ongoing. It's very much about laying the foundations at the present time. Appreciate also that we do have some time constraints. Importantly, when we get to the next gateway, that financial modelling about the so what if we haven't been able to secure the external funding will be explored and reported to yourselves as the fire authority. So very much in the early stages, very much about the engagement, building the foundations, building the relationships, but it is something that we're acutely aware of that is time critical.
Gareth, does that answer your question?
Yes, I mean, you can't go into certain details because we don't know what they are, but I think it's important that everybody, each member of this authority, recognises that they all have a part to play within their political circles, and it's really important that we get £50 million by next year, by early next year, committed by whoever gets the power to do so. And I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Can I just come back in on a point of about the political communication and engagement? We've sent the same information out to all leaders and deputy leaders of all the major political parties in Wales to prevent any perception of bias during this pre-election period. I know we've used the phrase lobbying within this meeting, but we certainly our actions were intended to communicate the work that we do as a service. If you've the briefings that I've shared with members, we're not overly focused on this project on Hub Owen because we did not want to be seen as being perceived as being political lobbying during this pre-election period. So that obviously limited the amount of detail that we were able to include there. But we have focused on the sort of wider context of the service that we do and the sort of evolving risk landscape that we face.
Thank you, Justin. Councillor Mark Young, Mark?
Okay, yeah, Jock thanks for that confirmation that we've sent out the information to all political parties. That's great. You know, it's one of those schemes. I believe it sells itself. It's a win-win for North Wales and Wales. So you'd hope for a positive outcome. But I just want to test with Helen and senior officers. So we understand the timing is going to be later in the year. But I've been involved with some funding potential for schools in my area of serve. You might not get all the funding, so are we looking at the option if we have to put 10% in, 20? I know we don't want to, but we will need to be agile. So can you just talk me through your thinking and plans ready to react to any offers of the funding? So I understand we want it all, but we might have to compromise. So any thoughts on that, please, officers?
Thank you. I'm happy to pick that up. That is something that we're acutely aware of, and that financial modelling in the event that we don't receive or can't establish the required funding will be brought to members as part of the next iteration. Thank you.
Okay, I can't see any other hands being raised, so the report is for information. Can I have somebody propose that we note the report, please? Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Gareth. Will you show that you approve? Diolch yn fawr. So we move on to the next item of the agenda, which is item number 9, which is the financial strategies and statements for 2026-27. And it's our head of finance, Elgan Roberts, who's presenting this. Diolch yn fawr, Elgan. Bore da.
Bore da, diolch yn fawr, Cadeirydd. Cafodd y ddogfen yma ei ystyried a'i graffu gan y Pwyllgor Archwilio yn mis Mawrth, lle bu aelodau'n adolygu y strategaethau ac yn cefnogi cymeradwyo. Felly mae papur ger bron aelodau heddiw mwyn i awdurdod ei fabwysiadu'n ffurfiol. Mae'r papur yn cynnwys strategaeth gyfalaf, y strategaeth rheoli trosolus a datganiad y ddarpariaeth i sawswm revenue ar gyfer 2026-27. Gyda'n gilydd, mae rhain yn gosod y ffamwaith ar gyfer sut mae'r awdurdod yn cynllunio buddsoddiad cyfalaf, yn rheoli benthyca ac arian parod, ac yn addalu dyled. Hoffwn dynnu sylw at nifer fach o bwyntiau. Yn gyntaf, o ran llywodraethu a chydymffurfiaeth, mae'r tair strategaeth yn bodloni gofynion deddf Llywodraeth Leol 2023, cod darbodus SIPFA a chod rheoli'r trosolus. Yn ail, mae'r strategaeth gyfalaf yn cadarnhau bod buddsoddiad cyfalaf yn fforddiadwy ac o fewn y gyllideb revenue a gymeradwywyd. Mae'r holl gostau benthyca gan gynnwys llog a darpariaeth i'r sawswm revenue wedi hadlewyrchu'n llawn yn hyllideb revenue 2026-27 ac yn cyd-fynd â strategaeth adnoddau tymor canolig. Yn drydydd, mewn perthynas â rheoli trosolus a risg, mae'r awdurdod yn parhau i fabwysiadu dull darbodus. Mae diogelwch a hylifedd yn cael blaenoriaeth, ond mae benthyca'n parhau o fewn y terfynau cymeradwywi. Mae'r awdurdod yn parhau i weithredu islaw ei ofynion ariannu cyfalaf sy'n darparu sicrwydd bellach. Yn olaf, mae datganiad y ddarpariaeth i'r sawswm revenue yn cadarnhau dull sy'n cydymffurfio a gofynion ar gyfer addalu dyled, sydd wedi ei lunio ac oes yr asedau a chanllawiau Llywodraeth Cymru. Mae hyn yn sicrhau bod cwrs buddsoddiadau cyfalaf yn cael ei wasgaru'n deg dros y cyfnod y chaiff y buddsoddion ei derbyn. Diolch Cadeirydd ac yn hapus i ateb unrhyw gwestiwn.
Diolch Elgan, and as was pointed out, this report has already been scrutinised by the Audit Committee. Any questions or comments from members, please? I can't see any hands being raised, so in that case, can we move to the recommendations? Councillor Jeff Evans?
I don't know if this question is suited to this point of the agenda, but as it's on financial matters and implications, can somebody tell me what is the impact on North Wales Fire and Rescue Services as to the extortionate fuel costs which are now happening? It must have had a major impact on the budget. And do we have, it's obviously a volatile area, how has it now been addressed? How are we managing the extra money that it's costing to run the service?
Okay, I don't know, Elgan, if you want to answer that now, or if you want to bring it up under the provisional out-term report later on. I'll leave that up to you.
Yeah, I can pick that up under the provisional out-term paper. It links directly to the budget, so if that's okay.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So we'll answer that later on, Jeff. Thank you for the question. I can't see any other hands being raised, so will you show that you can I have a proposer that we accept the recommendations, please? Thank you, Gareth. Thank you, Anne. That's been passed. So we move on to item 10, the medium-term resource strategy for 2026-2030. I think it's CFO Helen MacArthur. Helen, over to you. Diolch.
Diolch Cadeirydd. This paper was also considered and scrutinised by the Audit Committee at its meeting in March. Again, the resource strategy was supported and endorsed. It's before yourselves as members today for formal approval. The medium-term resource strategy sets the financial framework for delivering the Community Risk Management Plan and covers the period 2026 to 2030, so very much a forward look on our finances. It provides you with the medium-term financial outlook, the key pressures we face, and the assumptions that we're using around such matters as pay, general inflation, capital financing, and funding. I suspect my sort of health warning today is that this was written pre the global economic events that we are currently experiencing. This strategy is a core part of our governance framework and underpins annual budget setting, our financial resilience, and our long-term sustainability. There are a number of points that I'd like to briefly highlight to yourselves. Firstly, that the authority remains in a sustainable financial position over the medium term. Whilst pay inflation, pay uncertainty, state pressures, and the future emergency service network to continue to present challenges, these are being managed through planned efficiencies, productivity improvements, and the prudent, time-limited use of reserves. Secondly, the strategy confirms the indicative financial envelope for the next 4 years, which is critical to ensuring that we can deliver the Community Risk Management Plan. Members will also note that capital expenditure peaks in 2027-28 and 28-29 as Hub Owen, the proposed training centre, progresses. Our current working assumption, which we've discussed today, remains that construction will be supported by external funding and all borrowing, interest and MRP costs are fully reflected within the medium-term plan. Should it not be possible to secure that external funding, the medium-term resource plan will be revisited. Thirdly, in relation to the use of reserves, these are forecast to be around 11.5 million at the end of March 26, and these reduce over the period in line with the planned use, but the general fund reserves remains at a prudent level. This provides resilience and helps us manage that volatility while avoiding reliance on reserves for recurring expenditure. By way of assurance to members, the estimates within the strategy have been prepared on a robust and prudent basis, reflecting our known risks and uncertainties. Members will be aware that national pay awards for 26/7 are not yet agreed, and the future construction phase of Hub Owen remains dependent on that external funding. Should these change in the future, the strategy will be revisited. Looking slightly further ahead, the emergency service network from 28-29 remains a significant challenge the medium term, particularly around the dual running costs. And again, that's monitored closely and is one of our strategic risks. In summary, this strategy provides a clear and balanced view of the authority's financial position and confirms that based on current assumptions, the authority remains financially stable. Thank you, Chair, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Helen. And as you've pointed out, this report has also been previously scrutinised by the Audit Committee. Are there any questions or comments from members, please? No, I can't see any hands being raised. In that case, can I have somebody propose that we approve the plan, please? Thank you, Ian. Thank you, Mark. Will you show that you're in agreement? Diolch yn fawr. So we move on to item number 11, which is back to you again, please, Helen, which is the pay policy statement for 2026-27. Diolch.
Diolch. This paper was actually considered by the executive panel in March. Again, it was reviewed and supported. There has been a minor update, which I'll touch on. And again, it's before members today for that formal approval. The pay policy statement is a statutory requirement under the Localism Act of 2011 and must be approved annually. The pay policy statement sets out the authority's approach to pay, including senior pay, outlining the lowest paid employees and the relationship between the two. But the aim of the policy is to ensure transparency and accountability. Some keynotes that I would like to highlight with members. This is largely unchanged in terms of its form and is consistent with previous years. The underlying principles around affordability, transparency, equal pay and value for money remain the same. Pay continues to be set through national collective bargaining arrangements, and there is no provision for bonuses or performance-related pay across any of our staff groups. Members should note the minor updates since the executive panel. Notably, the service has been accredited as a real living wage employer, which I believe is a really positive step forward. And this has also been reflected in the final statement before members today. This reinforces our commitment to fair pay and particularly for our lower paid colleagues. Thirdly, in terms of proportionality and assurance, the statement clearly sets out pay multiples between the Chief Fire Officer and the lowest paid and median employees. These remained within recognised good practice benchmarks and provide assurance that senior pay remains proportionate and defensible. The statement has been prepared on a robust and compliant basis and is fully aligned to the Welsh Government guidance on pay accountability and the authority's financial position. In summary, this is a statutory low-risk item that supports good governance, transparency and fair play across the organisation. Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Helen. Councillor Gareth Sandilands. Gareth?
Yes, I thought this was a good opportunity here to discuss where we are with the current pay negotiations. As the majority of our costs is in people, we must ensure some stability, and where the unions will be, relationships will be tried and tested on this. I was wondering if we'd had any updates regarding the current situation and where we're lying on the pay increase this year. Thank you.
Sadly, nothing tangible and positive. Certainly, we have two main staff groups. Green Book colleagues are working corporate services and Grey Book colleagues are operational. In terms of Grey Book, there was an offer and that has been rejected by the unions. And that would have been effective from the 1st of April. In terms of Grey Book, that's effective from the 1st of July, and those negotiations are still taking place. Certainly in Grey Book, for Grey Book colleagues, it's very much around pay modernisation as well as the in-year cost of living. So we definitely set the budget based on the experiences or the expectations across the fire sector, and also aligned to our local authorities. In terms of should it settle above our budget setting, there is a little bit of resilience in reserves to smooth the effect for 1 year only. So definitely a key risk that we are carefully managing.
So what is our current outcome? What are we expecting on percentage?
In terms of budget setting, it was 3.8%. That's if it's higher than that, then we'll have to manage that internally.
Okay, thank you for that.
Any other questions or comments for Helen? No, I think, you know, in terms of sort of this report, it shows that we're in a really good place in terms of the structure within the North Wales Fire and Rescue Service, and I think credit to the organisation for that. Can I have somebody propose that we accept the report, please? Thank you, John Brynmore. Thank you, Ian. Will you all show that you approve the recommendations? Diolch yn fawr. That's been unanimously passed. So we move on to item number 12, which is the Community Risk Management Implementation Plan for 2026-27. I think it's Mike Plant that's presenting this. Over to you, Mike. Bawda.
Chair, it's myself, with your permission. Thank you.
Finance, thank you.
Thank you. The purpose of this report is to provide members with an overview of the feedback received from the public consultation of the Community Risk Management Implementation Plan for 2026-2027 and the associated Equality Impact Assessment, and to seek approval for those final versions of those documents. This is the third Community Risk Management Implementation Plan, which has been developed to support the delivery of the authority's 5-year Community Risk Management Plan. That Community Risk Management Plan aims to identify the risks facing the communities and describe how the authority will manage those risks and to continue to prevent and respond to fires and other emergencies. This consultation ran from the 23rd of October to the 16th of December 2025, and we gathered responses via online bilingual questionnaire, engagement events, stakeholder letters, internal communications, and we targeted equality groups across North Wales. I'm pleased to say that we received a total of 397 responses, and that's represented a 42% increase compared to the previous year's consultation, although staff responses do still remain low. To support for the proposed improvement and wellbeing objectives was consistently high, with agreement levels across the 5 principles for keeping our communities safe ranging from 93 to 97%. Respondents were invited to provide qualitative feedback, and verbatim comments are included in the report as appendices, and these were shared with our relevant heads of department for their consideration. The consultation process fulfilled our statutory duties under the Local Government Measure, Wales, 2009, the Wellbeing of Future Generations, Wales Act 2015, and Welsh Government Fire and Rescue Circular 2024, allowing those obligations to be met through a single report. Our trade unions were engaged throughout, and the social partnership duty adhered to, with consensus of the objectives confirmed at the Joint Consultation and Negotiation Committee in February 2026. The Executive Panel of the Fire Authority considered the CRMIP for 26-27 on the 16th of March this year and approved it for publication. So members are asked to note the content of the consultation report and approve the attached CRMIP 26-27 and the associated Equality Impact Assessment for publication. Diolch yn fawr iawn.
Thank you, Anton. It's a very comprehensive report, but as you pointed out, it has been considered and scrutinised by the executive panel at their last meeting. Any comments or questions from members, please? I can't see any hands being raised. In that case, can I ask for somebody to propose that we accept the recommendations? Thank you, Mark. Seconder. Thank you. Anne, will you all show that you approve, please? Diolch yn fawr. That's been passed. So we go on to item number 13, which is the Firefighters Pension Scheme's discretionary policy statement. And back to you, Helen. Diolch.
Diolch. The Fire Authority is scheme manager for the Firefighters Pension Scheme. And within the regulations, we're largely told what we need to do, but on occasions there are a number of areas that you as a scheme manager has discretion. You may recall that about 12 months ago we produced a very detailed discretionary document, and it's really good practice on an annual basis to review that. Following the current review, there's an area where we do require further discussion. What it relates to is under the 1992 scheme, if a beneficiary in the event of a death receives a pension and subsequently either cohabits or indeed remarries, the pension is terminated. And there is a discretion that should that second marriage or the cohabitation end, that the pension can be re-established. It is good practice. It brings the 92 scheme closer in alignment to the 2015 scheme, and we're seeking approval for that discretion to be applied. What that means in reality is, should a person find themselves in the very, very unfortunate position of financial hardship due to either a second bereavement, breakdown in marriage, or a breakdown in relationship, the pension can be reinstated. Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to take any questions on the discretion, should members have any.
Thank you, Helen. I think I'm right. This has already been approved by the Pensions Board. Is that correct?
It's certainly been considered and endorsed by the pension boards, yes.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from members, please? No. Can I have a proposer, please, that we accept the report? Thank you, Anne. Can I have a seconder? Thank you, Mark. Will you all show that you approve? Diolch yn fawr. That's been passed. So we go on to item 14, which is the Firefighters Pension Schemes Local Pension Board Annual Report for 2025-26 on the terms of reference. And I think it's over to you, Dafydd. Diolch yn fawr, Dafydd.
Bore da, Cadeirydd. A fel Cadeirydd yr Bwrdd Pensiwn am y flwyddyn dwytha, mae'n bleser gen i gyflwyno'r adroddiad. A cadarnhau bydd yr eitem dwytha wedi cael sylw priodol yn y cyfarfod dwytha. Mae'r adroddiad blynyddol y Bwrdd Pensiwn yma atodiad 1 ar tudalen 201 o'r pecyn, a mae'r cylch gorchwil, dwi bob tro'n cael traffathau hynna, mae hwnnw hefyd ar gyfer y flwyddyn i ddod ar tudalen 210 o'r pecyn. Mae'r argymhellion yna yn rhan 4 yn gofyn i chi gymeradwyo'r adroddiad blynyddol. Mae hwnnw wedi gymeradwyo gen yr Bwrdd Pensiwn yn barod, a'r ail ran ydy cymeradwyo'r cylch gorchwil. Sylwadau gan y bwrdd, fel i'n dweud, wedi ystyried a cymeradwyo'r dogfenna yn ei gyfarfod ar yr ail o Ebrill, sydd rhywbeth efnos yn ôl. A ewch chi mlaen i wylod tudalen 197 ar y gwylod, paragraff 12, ac mae'r adroddiad, fel i'n dweud, wedi atodi yn fanna ar tudalen 201. Ymlaen i'r ddogfen hwnnw ei hun, a'i reit ymlaen i tudalen 201 ar wylod y tudalen. Welwch chi rôl yn rhan 2 efo yna. Mae rôl y bwrdd ydy cynorthwyo rheolwr y cynllun, sef yr awdurdod, i sicrhau cydymffurfiaeth efo cyfreithiau a rheoliadau, gofynion o rheoleiddiwr, a sicrhau bod y cynllun yn cael ei lywodraethu a'i wynyddu yn effeithiol ac yn effeithlon. Dydy o ddim yn gwneud penderfyniadau fel y cyfryw, ond mae'n gyfaill beirniadol i'r awdurdod a'i swyddogion wrth iddyn nhw weithredu yn rheinwedd eu swydd i reoli'r cynllun pensiwn. A dwi'n meddwl, pan o'n i'n edrych yn ôl ar yng Ngyrfa, dwi'n meddwl na'r penderfyniad gorau nes i roed wneud oedd ymuno yn y cornol pensiwn yn ôl yn dechrau'r 80au, achos di rwy'n ddim yn wneud y penderfyniad, da ni'n cael yn optio fewn yn automatig, a di pobl ddim yn joinio'r brigad da yn allan meddwl, da ni eisiau pensiwn, lle dwi'n meddwl bod o'n gymaint o recruitment ed, ond yn sicr mae'n retention ed pan mae bobl yn dod ymlaen, mae'n sicr yn werthfawr iddyn nhw wrth edrych ymlaen i ymddeol. Ac aelodaeth y bwrdd, mae yna 5 rwan yn cynrychiolwyr cyflogwr a 5 cynrychiolwr cyflogaeth geion, sef y staff, ac mae hynny wedi rhestru yna. A'i mlaen, yn ystod y flwyddyn, ar i'r bwrdd ystyried sawl peth. Yr her gyfreithiol genedlaethol sy'n ymwneud â trefniadau MacLeod, cynllun pensiwn trosiannol, lle oedd Llywodraeth San Steffan wedi dod â deddfwriaeth i'r fei oedd ddim yn briodol o ran oed pobl. Y mater cyfreithiol arall efo diffodwyr tân ar alwad, dyfarniad O'Brien, prisiad y Government Actuaries Department ac ariannu hwnnw gen Llywodraeth Cymru, newidiadau cyfraniadau yr staff, polisi disgresiwn, diweddariad Bwrdd Cenedlaethol Cynlluniau Cymru, y drefn ddatrys anghydfod a diweddariadau bob cyfarfod i'r gyfrestyr risg. Dipyn o bethau ddigon cymlaeth o fanna, a dwi'n ddiolchgar i'r aelodau'r bwrdd am ddygymod â hynny. Rhai ohonyn nhw efo ni o'r awdurdod a rhai nhw'n aelodau staff. Mae'r rôl y cadeirydd yn cael ei gylchdroi bob 2 flynedd. Aelod sy'n cynrychioli'r cyflogwr am 2 flynedd, a wedyn aelod sy'n cynrychioli'r staff, aelodau'r cynllun. Mae cyfnod 2 flynedd fi newydd ddod i ben, a dwi'n falch o ddeud fydd Ruth Bateman yn cymryd drosodd o ochr y staff, drosodd am y 2 flynedd nesaf. Mae'r cylch gorchwil yna yn atodiad 2, dwi ddim am mynd drwyddo fo, ydych chi'n falch o gwybod, dwi'n siŵr. Ond jyst wrth nodi wrth adolygu eleni, does na ddim newid sylweddol ger bron heddiw. Llynedd ar un ni'n gwneud 2 newid sylfaenol sydd wedi profi'n ddefnyddiol, sef cynyddu'r nifer aelodau ac addasu'r rheol cworwm. Ers hynny, ar un ni'n gorfod gohirio unrhyw gyfarfod, a mae rhai aelodau newydd ar yr bwrdd sydd wedi cyfrannu'n bositif iawn. Dwi'n ddiolchgar iddyn nhw. A jyst i orffan, fel cadeirydd y bwrdd, swn i'n diolch i aelodau'r bwrdd a'r swyddogion. Mae aelodau'r bwrdd wedi camu fyny a cyfrannu ar y materion cymlaeth o'n i'n cyfeirio atyn nhw. A dyn nhw ddim yn derbyn unrhyw dawl ychwanegol am hynny. Wedyn, maen nhw'n haeddu'r diolch. Mae cynrychiolwyr y staff a'r cyflogwr ar y bwrdd, maen nhw yna am y rhesymau iawn i wneud y gorau bydd aelodau'r cynllun, sef yn staff ni. A fel awdurdod, da ni'n ffodus hefyd o'n staff. Mae'r chief yn arwain yn genedlaethol ar faterion pensiynau. Mae Helen yn gydagothol ofnadwy. Mae Becky o dan llwyth gwaith trwm yn yr uned, a mae Kim yn rhoi arbenigedd i ni ar y cyd efo'r de. Mae'r swyddogion Caerfyrddin hefyd yn delio efo swmp gwaith trwm ar faterion eitha dyrys. Mae hyn o bwys mawr i'n staff. Wedyn diolch ar ran y staff i gyd i bawb sy'n gweithio ar hyn. Dwi'n gwerthfawrogi'n fawr. Diolch yn fawr, cadeirydd.
Diolch yn fawr, Dafydd. A rhan yr awdurdod, ga i hefyd diolch i chi am y gwaith da iawn ydych chi wedi bod yn gwneud ar eich rôl fel cadeirydd. Ni'n gwerthfawrogi hynny. Diolch yn fawr i chi. Any questions or comments for the Treasurer, please? No. In that case, can I ask that somebody propose that we accept the recommendations, please? Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Gareth. Will you all show that in favour? Diolch yn fawr. Diolch yn fawr unwaith eto, David. So we go on to item number 50, which is the Democracy and Boundary Commission Cymru Annual Rumination Report for 2026-27. And I think it's over to, is it over to Matt or is it over to Gareth for this report?
Me for this one, Chair. Awdurdod, Cadeirydd, good morning, members and Chair. So this is an annual report, Chair. Members will have seen it in their principal councils. I won't dwell on it long. There are a number of important points, though, I think, to bring out. Firstly, and most importantly, of course, that councillors do not set their own allowances. They are set by an independent body. Previously, that was the Independent Remuneration Panel for Wales, and it is now the Democracy and Boundary Commission Cymru. The Democracy and Boundary Commission Cymru, the DBBC, as per the Independent Remuneration Panel uses the National Statistics Office's index called the Annual Survey of Hours and Earnings to gather and set pay rates in comparison with real world salaries. The basic amounts do, as I've said, reflect real world salaries, and increases, Chair, significantly track changes in that index. Now, the figures that are being used here are the most recent index, 22 to 23, but the percentage increases that are being recommended or that have been put in place for members reflect changes that took place in that index between 21, 22 and 22, 23. The report of the DBCC is set out as an appendix to the report and my report, and the relevant paragraphs are paragraphs 46 to 49 in that appendix, or paragraph 8 of my report, where the rates for chairs and just ordinary members of the Fire Authority are set out, Chair. In addition, Chair, as well as elected members, of course, the Fire Authority has 4 co-opted members on its Standards Committee, or 2 at the moment, as you will see from the next report. Their rates of pay are set slightly differently. Their rates of pay are set using the Welsh Government rate for public appointments. That rate of pay has not changed for some years, causing what was felt to be erosion in the rates of pay for co-opted members. The DBCC notes that rate is now under review by Welsh Government and in future reports may change or increase. We are required, Chair, as an authority to publish the schedule of remuneration, the money that we will be paying to members over the coming 12 months. And you will see that I have asked in the report for delegated authority to not only to publish that document, but also to keep it up to date during the coming 12 months. Chair, that's all I think I needed to say. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Gareth. Any questions or comments in relation to the report? No, I can't see any hands being raised. Can I have somebody to propose that we accept the recommendations, please? Thank you, Ian. Thank you, Gareth. Will you all show that your agreements? Diolch yn fawr. And then I think it's back to you, Gareth, for the next item as well, which is the appointment of independent members to serve on the Authority's Standards Committee. Diolch.
Diolch, Cadeirydd. As I mentioned, the authority has 4 co-opted members called independent members as part of its Standards Committee. These are people who are recruited through open advert and appointed to the Standards Committee to ensure that it has both independence and visible impartiality. 2 of those members, Julia Hughes and Sally Ellis, have served the maximum 2 terms that they can serve on that committee, and they have had to stand down. And you will see that there is a recommendation, Chair, that they be thanked for their work on behalf of the authority. In order to replace them, we advertised the positions in accordance with the regulations, which are detailed and quite prescriptive, Chair, as you will be aware, having been part of the panel. And following advert, we were able to interview 1 candidate who was felt to be appointable. That candidate is David Davis. And the recommendation is that he be appointed for a period of 4 years from April, from today, to serve on that committee. That will leave us with 1 vacancy that will need to be re-advertised, Chair. And Chair, as we've done in the past, it would be my suggestion that we ask other constituent councils whether they also have a vacancy in order that we can share the recruitment process with members' agreement. I'm happy to take the question.
Thank you, Gareth. And yes, I'd also like to thank Julia Hughes and Sally Ellis for their hard work and commitment. I have worked alongside them for a period when I sat on the appointments panel, and yes, the standards panel, and yes, they were really excellent members of that committee. And can I just confirm that Councillor Gareth Sanders and myself were part of the interviewing team in relation to David Davis, and that we were unanimous in recommending to you that he be appointed. He will undoubtedly be an asset to that subcommittee. Cynghorydd Gwynfor Owen?
Diolch yn fawr. Problem sgynna i ydy, dwi'n mynd abod David Davies, dwi'n mynd meddwl, a dyna beth yw'r broblem. Da ni'n mynd i gael yn gofyn i bleidleisio i gymeradwyo rwy'n, a mae'n bosib bod nhw rwy'n da ni'n nabod o dda. Dwi'n nabod dipyn golew o David Davies, a felly mae'n broblem. Nes i bron iawn landio mewn trap yr un fath yn y Cyngor Gwynedd pen o'n i'n penodi rwy'n efo no. Oedd yn digwydd bod yn gydweithio i mi. Ac felly dwi ddim yn hapus pleidleisio dros un person heb fod yn gwybod chydig bach mwy o fanylion. A fyswn i ddigon hapus enghraifft os da chi'n cadarnhau mi bod o tu allan i Gwynedd, mae hynny'n mynd i fod yn ddigon o foddhad i mi yn bersonol, ond fel arall, dwi ddim yn hapus.
Wel, mi allai fi cadarnhau chi bod yn tu allan i Gwynedd, ond mi allai fi, dwi'n siŵr allai chi ymddiddiad iddyn ni. Mae gyda fo llawer o profiad a sgiliau, a mi oedd yn boi iawn. Diolch Gwynfor. Councillor Ian Hodge.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'd just like to point out, Gareth, on page 239, you have Dave Davis in place for 6 years, from 26 to 32. That's just a clerical error, I'm sure. But I'd also like, having attended the Standards Committee, I'd just like to suggest to the members that we're going to have a similar problem next year when Jill and Gareth are both due for re-election or leaving us at exactly the same time. So I'd just like to raise that matter so that members are aware. Obviously, the governance of the authority could change drastically before then, but I just wanted to highlight that item. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks. Gareth, you want to respond to that before the next question?
Diolch, Cadeirydd. A couple of points just dealing with the issues that have been raised. So, I was just trying to think how long Jill and Gareth have served. I think they have both served one term already, and they are coming to the end of their second term. It would be yes, because they'll have done 8 years by the end of next year. So yes, we will need to recruit to replace them. Not always easy task, Chair, but it is part of the way the legislation is structured to make sure that people don't become too inured in the way of working of the authority, that they can only serve this maximum of 2 years. I won't use the term go native because I think it's a dreadful expression, Chair, but that's the purpose for ensuring that people only serve a maximum of 2 terms. In relation to David Davis himself and the appointment of David Davis, clearly, Chair, you were able to see, and you've given assurances in relation to his characteristics. He doesn't have, as far as we're aware, any links with Gwynedd, but to give to give the councillor confidence, Chair, if there is a link and the councillor is unaware of that link at the point where they are voting, then they are not deemed to have breached the code of conduct. Clearly, Chair, we can't give too many personal details in what has to be, I think, a public report. So we couldn't, for example, give the candidate's name and address in what has to be a public report in order to give members that assurance. So we have that. They can have that confidence that if they don't know about any links and they subsequently discover them, they won't have breached the code, because, of course, if they're unaware of the links, it can't have influenced the way they voted.
Thank you, Gareth. Councillor Anthony Wren.
Yes, thank you. Perhaps Gareth has helped me slightly there. Is this the same David Davis that's a member of the Flintshire Standards Committee, of which I'm also a member of?
It is.
And as such, should I be declaring a personal and prejudicial interest, or
No.
neither?
No, simply serving on the same committee.
That's the bit that confuses me. Okay, thank you very much.
Doesn't make somebody a closely associated person under the code.
Thank you.
Right, I can't see any other hands being raised, so we move to the two recommendations before you. Can have somebody propose that we accept those, please? Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Mark. Will you all show that your agreement? Diolch yn fawr. So we go on to item number 17, which is the provisional outturn report for 2026. And I think, Elgin, it's back to you. Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch, Cadeirydd. So this paper is to provide an update on the provisional revenue and capital outturn position for 25-26. It is based on expenditure as at the end of 31st of March. Please note that this remains a provisional position, though, and will be refined as we work through close down and production of the annual accounts. I'll highlight some key points. So firstly, on the revenue position, the authority approved a net budget of 51.788 million for 25-26, which includes the planned use of reserves to balance the budget. The provisional outturn now forecasts revenue expenditure at 51.654 million, which is an underspend of 134,000, which is around 0.3% of the budget. This reflects a combination of factors, including underspend on employee costs due to recruitment and establishment challenges, which is partly being offset by pressures within non-pay budgets, such as those on premises, transport, and third-party costs. Importantly, the budget has been delivered within the overall cash limit, which was approved by members. Second, and as we've already discussed during this meeting, is relation to pay and workforce pressures, with the budget making up around 70% of staffing costs. So staffing costs make up around 70% of our budget. While national pay awards were slightly higher than assumed when the budget was set, this was mitigated through a combination of recruitment timing, establishment management, and additional one-off Welsh Government funding. Workforce risks include overtime and sickness-related pressures, and they've continued to be actively managed throughout the year. Moving on to the capital programme, the authority approved a capital budget of 6.1 million for 25-26, which was supplemented by 2.6 million of prior year rollover. Due to slippage on a number of schemes, particularly within the facilities and decarbonisation projects, capital expenditure is forecasted to be £5 million this year, with 4.6 million proposed to roll over into next financial year. And then finally, in respect of reserves, the provisional outturn assumes no earmarked reserves during the year, no use of earmarked reserves. The underspend position supports proposed movement into reserves, including an allocation for pension and known future liabilities. By way of assurance to members, these are one-off in nature and will be finalised as part of the statement of accounts. Therefore, in summary, the authority has delivered its 25-26 revenue budget within the approved limits, managed significant operational and inflationary pressures, and maintained a prudent approach to reserves and capital delivery. That's the end of the report, but I'll happily pick up the earlier question in terms of inflation. In terms of the work that's going on, we currently pre-buy or we've got a fixed electricity and gas contract that is due to expire in September 2026, and we have engaged through a sort of commercial framework and a competition, and we have fixed our gas for the next 5 years and electricity for the next 2.5 years. So that gives us some really good certainty and a forecast over the next couple of years of what our cost will be. We are, as part of the work that the authority is doing, we're looking to decarbonise. So as we're moving away from fuel or diesel vehicles to electric vehicles. We're also looking to implement HVO for our station appliances as well. So that is reducing our resilience on sort of the movement in the market of when fuel cost is dramatically increasing. We do have a bit of a safety net and have fixed in some of the price increase as well. So in overall, it's a relatively stable position, and we have chosen to have that stability instead of short-term up and down based on the world markets.
Diolch, Elgin. Councillor Jeff Evans. Jeff, does that answer your query from earlier on?
No, it doesn't actually. I am interested, we're all aware of the massive inflation which has gone up around fuel, for diesel, for petrol, heating, etc., and that is still going up. And I just wonder how much is it costing the North Wales Fire and Rescue Service at this moment in time, every month, to meet that increased cost, and how are we going to pay it? From where will it come?
Helen, I think, do you want to come in at this stage? Yeah.
Yeah, I can absolutely appreciate the concern. In terms of those inflationary increases, for gas and electricity, we're currently in the very fortunate position that we're still in our fixed term period. That financial modelling will take place if the rises continue. We're looking to fix in the medium term also. The biggest risk for us is diesel. We are moving the fleet more generally, apart from the fire appliances, we're moving the fleet towards electric vehicles, and then we're relying on our fix on electricity. The diesel costs are increasing, so the amount that we pay at the pump is increasing, and that's being kept very carefully managed. If diesel prices don't start to reduce down, it will be necessary to, first and foremost, try and manage within the existing budget. If that isn't possible, it will be necessary to come to yourselves as members and to put a request forward to use a reserve. And members will know that part of the earmarked reserves is a small amount for inflationary increases. So we are carefully watching it. The issue is wider as well. So as interest rates become more uncertain, any borrowing that we need to take place for capital purposes, we'll have to factor that in. So it's very much in the early stages. We are aware of the areas that are affected, and we are working to try and address those. But at this moment in time, we haven't got a figure that we could present to members saying that is the cost to date. So I'm absolutely satisfied for the purposes of the 25-26 financial year that the impact is negligible. But as we move into 26-27, it will be picked up internally within our service. We have quarterly meetings with budget holders, and those budget holders will be undertaking that detailed work. And definitely by the time we get to the next fire authority, we should be able to have some indicative figures for you.
Yeah.
I'll just leave there, Mr. Chairman, because there's lots of issues around this availability of fuel. That is a problem. We'll note that national airlines are having to actually cut down on their services, and I wonder or fear that the North Wales Fire and Rescue maybe have to reduce or curtail the level of service that we're able to provide because of the ongoing costs. It's all tied to the war and Trump and everybody else, but we're in a very difficult situation. Thank you.
Helen, did you want to come back in?
Just very briefly, Chair. I asked the question regarding the financial aspects of it, but more broadly, in terms of availability of fuel and business continuity, that work is ongoing, and we do have mechanisms in place that the arrangements should fuel become limited. We do have we have those business continuity plans. I know that my colleagues are working through those. I can't go into them in detail in this meeting, but certainly, so the two aspects, certainly the financial side we are managing, and the availability side we're also managing. So at this moment in time, at this moment, the availability of fuel to be able to deliver operationally is at this moment in time not impacting on our operational staff. There is that risk. That risk does exist, and it is being managed internally. So apologies, Councillor, I didn't appreciate that was the extent of the question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. Before I bring in Councillor Chris Hughes for his question, I see that Gareth, you've got your hand up. Did you want to contribute?
Diolch, Cadeirydd. Just to add on this point, I'm the business continuity lead for Flintshire. And there are meetings underway at the moment, under the guise of the LRF, looking at the stops. And as ACFO MacArthur has said, at the moment there are no problems with stocking levels in Wales at the moment. They are in fact slightly higher than normal, albeit we are seeing the impact in the pumps. ACFO MacArthur did talk there about arrangements for business continuity. There is a system, a national system of designated fire stations where Cat 1 and Cat 2 responders would be able to fuel, and we would be the only people allowed to fuel and the only services allowed to fuel at those locations in the event that supply ever did become a problem. So there is since the blockades in 2001 and then again in 2017, there is a well-developed framework in relation to the supply of fuel.
Diolch, Gareth. Councillor Chris Hughes. Chris?
Thanks, Diolch, Cadeirydd. I think Gareth has answered the question that I was going to ask in terms of continuity measures and everything else. But because one of my concerns was around our on-call staff and our staff members being able to actually respond to incidents to get to the fire stations in time. So look, I think from what Gareth's just said, that would be covered and our staff would be able to fill at those stations. But just if you could confirm that as that's correct. Thanks.
Sorry, Chair, this is not an opportune moment. There's some real banging going on in the background at home. Yeah, we designate as Cat 1 and Cat 2 responders, we designate staff as essential staff who are able to fill up at those fuel stations. So we would be going through, and it's an organisation which I'm sure the Fire Authority is undertaking at the moment, certainly my own council's doing, and I know others are. We're going through at the moment and reviewing our lists to see who would be allowed to fuel in the event that restrictions were put in place.
Thank you, Gareth. Councillor Rhonda Roberts. Rhonda, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just in what's been discussed there now, listening to a minister whose name escapes me yesterday on the news. The diesel and fuel comes from a lot of different suppliers nationally and such, but it's the jet fuel that's going to be compromised if it moves on into the summer, as that comes through from Q8. But petrol and diesel, they're not envisaging any shortages anytime soon. Hopefully the war will be over by then and the shipping lanes are reopened, but that's what I was listening to yesterday morning anyway. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I can't see any other hands being raised, so you've had the 3 recommendations placed before you to accept the report. Can I have a proposer, please? Thank you, Gareth. Thank you, Ian. Will you all show that you approve? Diolch yn fawr. So that concludes part 1 of the meeting. We are going to move to part 2 now because we're discussing a staffing and finance issue. I just